in the Bible and this priest phoning me and knowing ahead of time, and this is all occult. So I know that that's deception. Been lied to on a religious front all my life. From year 8, I'm an atheist because I've been lied to. Why shouldn't the scientific world also be lying? Who knows whether this is a farce? I'm not talking about science. People say you can't believe in God and be a scientist at the same time. Don't make a mistake. The problem is not science. The problem is the philosophy of origins. It's a philosophy. It's not science. Science is hard tack, empirical. You do the study. You do double blinds. You make the experiment. And whatever comes out, that's either black or it's white or it's whatever. But we're not arguing here about science. Don't get duped into science saying that creation is religion and evolution is science. Bull! Can I speak straight with you guys? Evolution is a theory of origins. It's got nothing to do with science. And they'll tell you that they've got, their natural selection. I'll come to that if we have time. But I want to give you a little bit of background, why I am like I am, why I'm so weird. And so I'm arguing and grappling with this thing, and I'm sitting in my office, and I'm busy right at that time, I was giving the genetics course to the postgrad students. And I'm dealing with issues of genetics and how it functions and how genes are activated and deactivated. And believe me, it's complicated. There's nothing simple about it. And the students suffered to understand the finer nuances. And let's face it, most of the lecturers pretend to understand it. It's very complicated. And I'm thinking about how did all this come about? And I'm sitting in my office and I'm saying, you know what? Maybe there is something wrong with evolution. After all, I'd moved from being a gradualist to a punctuated equilibriumist because the fossil record didn't bear out gradualism. There are no hordes of intermediaries unless you want to take a natural variety, and put them in a sequence and say, well, there you have your intermediaries. You know, I could take human hips today, ladies. I could take human hips and put them from very narrow to very broad and say, well, look here, this wonderful paradigm with just one error. They're not sequential in time, they're contemporaneous, they're all here at the present time, so it's just variety in the gene pool. It's got nothing to do with evolution. So I'm not impressed with the intermediaries that they put out there, which are mind sequences and not paleontological sequences, and that's why I was a punctuated equilibriumist while I was still an atheist. So I'm not impressed by those arguments, and I know that we tried to use them to explain evolution. They're a lie. And honest evolutionists become neo-Darwinists. They become punctuated equilibriumists because they have no choice. So I'm sitting there and I say, God, I don't know if you exist, but if you do exist and there's something wrong with this evolutionary theory and this man has put the ball in my court, then show me. I'm going to the library. I'm going to fetch a book on genetics. And I look at the books on genetics and I wander over to the paleontology section. Okay, and I take out the book on paleontology and I start reading it. I'm just looking through it and my paleontology colleague comes up to me by chance in the library. And he says, you know, we just got the new edition of that one. I said, oh, where is it? He says, I think it's still in the box on the back. It hasn't been unpacked, but it's just arrived. We ordered it, remember? And I said, oh, great, thank you. I go to the back. I'm checking the boxes. Oh, here's the new one. I take it. And I'm thinking, well, take them both. So I took them both to my office. By the way, my university had the largest evolution-based library in the Southern Hemisphere. Only Tübingen University can compete. The only two. Not even the United States will have a library on evolution like that. I guarantee it. So I'm reading these two books in my office at the same time. I've got them both open. And I'm checking what the new edition adds to the old edition. And as I'm reading, I see they explain the evolution of this or that organism, and they have all the evolutionary trees and the, all the systematics and the cladistics and all of those issues. And the old one says, unfortunately, we do not have any of the intermediate fossils here. We have nothing here. There's a gap here. It was quite honest. And I'm reading in the new one, the same one, and I'm looking what new did they find. And there's not a word of that. Not a word. It's just covered in scientific jargon that you wouldn't be able to pick that even up. And I said, oh, hang on a second now. I've never noticed this. And I go through the two books, and right throughout that book, there's a thick book like this. Everywhere, it's the same story. I think to myself, oh, this is a conspiracy. No, I didn't know that word yet. I'm only used to it now. There's something here. There's a cover-up. There's something wrong. And I'm grappling with this issue. And I'm busy with genetics. And evolution, natural selection cannot operate at the level of the genotype. Cannot. Natural selection can only operate at the level of what is expressed in the phenotype. You see, you have to select two options. You have to select from what is there. Natural selection, as I said yesterday, is a very poor deity. It cannot create anything. It can only select between options that are already there. So, how did everything come about at the level of the genotype? There's only one possibility, it's chance. So random chance, random chemical reactions. Now if you know a little bit about biochemistry, and you know about putting DNA sequences together, you cannot achieve it without enzymes under natural processes by any means whatsoever. What was first, the chicken and the egg, the enzyme or the DNA? Well, they say it was RNA was the precursor. Same problem. In fact, when you take it down to the final analysis, you cannot achieve it on this planet. So maybe it happened by panspermia. Maybe it happened on another planet. What have you done? You've transported the problem from your non-resolution area to another area where it will be exactly the same. You're just transporting the problem because you can't solve it here. It's like Einstein's relativity theory. You can't solve what's happening and what you measure by empirical evidence, so you make a mathematical formula and it solves the problem. Then it becomes, oh, it's relative. Is that really science? Or is that manipulating science to resolve an issue that you do not understand? So everything here happened by chance. To even one gene to come about by chance, it is mind-boggling. And here at this level, things can be sorted out. That's like saying, this book with the instructions to build this aeroplane came about by chance. Not only that, you have to say that this book came about by chance, and the entire process from book to aeroplane also came about by chance. Can you help me? Who wrote the book? You don't know who wrote the book. Do you know who wrote the book? Do you know who wrote the book? Chance wrote the book. It's a very intricate book. It's very complicated. It's not an aeroplane that comes out, it's you. The most complicated thing that the universe can imagine, with all its intricacies, with all its interconnection, with all its beautiful harmony. And I was thinking about the process of meiosis and the process of genetic transcription and translation and inductions and all of these things. Whew. Has anybody ever explained to you how that double helix, when it is transcribed, how it unfolds? It's a double helix. It's 2 cords of string. You start pulling 2 cords and opening up at the same time, what happens to the string in the middle? If you hold 2 sides and I hold 2 sides and we start pulling, what happens in the middle? It becomes very tight. Can't have it very tight. You have to open a piece so that you can transcribe that particular gene. But when you do that, you're pulling it apart like this. So in actual fact, there are enzymes which link around it over here, and they cut the DNA, and they hold the 2 strands like in a ball-bearing thing, and they allow the pressure to be released so that you can open it without it being snarled. Eventually you start reading your DNA, but the one reads up and the other one reads down. And in case you want to make a mistake, you have a problem. So you have your transcriptase enzyme going, it's going so fast it could make a mistake. So following it are 5 editase enzymes coming behind it. Why 5? Because they have to work slower. They're proofreaders. And when they see a mistake, if we let this mistake through, Johnny's going to end up a cabbage. We better fix it that Johnny becomes not a cabbage. And he has to say, excuse me, I can't just replace the wrong one because that's not how my enzyme works. We have to retract it till the beginning. And the other 5 then go together in harmony. And 5 of them trying to keep up with 1 and repairing every mistake along the line, and in the same time untwirling and then cutting and twirling and cutting and twirling. And then when it's finished, it has to wind up again, right? So cut, ball bearing, ball bearing, ball bearing, and then you have the other enzyme, the ligases come, bind it all together, that it's perfect. That's how the book is opened. Fascinating. If you explain it now in great detail like you would at a postgrad course, I'm just giving you the very short synopsis. It boggles the mind. How did it come into existence? It's genotype. It's never subject to natural selection. Only the consequence thereof, the expressed phenotype, is subject to natural selection. So all of that, with all its intricacy, came about by chance. And I started thinking about this, and I said to myself, you know what? You've been an idiot all your life. There's no way this thing happened by chance. This is design. It smacks of design. Now think about sexual reproduction. You were created male and female. Yesterday I spoke about beauty. You don't have to be beautiful to reproduce, right? Now you're an incredibly handsome man. I'm sure that the ladies are falling over your feet, but not everybody is as lucky as you. Does he have a selective advantage over anyone else here? No, I don't think so. So let's think about sexual reproduction. Sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you. My students used to hide. They don't want to sit in the front, they sit in the back. But I change it. I sometimes go to the middle and to the back, so there was no point in hiding. Think about meiosis. That's even more complicated. More complicated because now you have 2 sets of chromosomes coming together, splitting into chromatids, and then they cross over. They share genetic information. But it has to be precise at the exact locus. If there's one nucleotide out, you end up a cabbage. Because it's a triple